Everyone, a little more discussion on stocks. I'm prepping some of the ingredients for it now. I also found my tomato paste, so I have that. A couple of things to point out when it comes to prepping the ingredients. So in other videos, I showed you how to do some different knife cuts. And if you haven't watched them, you can review them. But when it comes to this, what we're making here with the stock, we wouldn't go to trim and square off things to make them so uniform, although that does mean that things are going to cook more evenly, mainly because this is going to be cooked for a long period of time. Again, even if we're making, a chicken stock, it's going to be cooked for a few hours. And the vegetables are going to get all strained out, right? So we just need to cut them small enough that we're going to get the flavor out of them. We don't want to cut them too small because the carrots in particular can break down and then just basically start disintegrating into the stock, and that's going to leave like a lot of pieces of things, and in the end we want a liquid. So we don't want this distraction of all these pieces. I put a few terms up on the board here that I mentioned in the other video. Mirepoix, again, onion, celery, carrot, 50% onion, 25-25 by weight is your traditional mirepoix. This may be substitute with parsnips for a white mirepoix. Bouquet garni is these aromatic vegetables, aromatic herbs and spices. Sorry, I just realized I left some stoves on. And a sachet is when we have them contained in something. So in this case, I've got some cheesecloth here. I've got some butcher's twine. I'm going to tie those up. And then I mentioned the two types of bones. I have them in the oven right now. Smells delicious in here. Too bad you can't smell it. I've got some shank bones and I've got some neck bones in there. And again, we get different things from each of them. I put up here veal/beef on both. So traditionally, veal would be used. The bones that I showed you are beef bones. They're a little bigger. They don't have as much connective tissue on them. Veal is preferred. Veal is younger cattle. Okay, so as unpleasant it is to think about it, the younger have more connective tissue, less bone, and so they make better stocks. So that's traditionally what would be used. And then again, from those, we want to get that collagen that's in the bones, add heat and water by cooking it in the pot with water to yield gelatin. And that's kind of what we're looking to get, this liquid that has flavor from the bones, from whatever the primary bone was. So in this case, beef or veal. And we also want to get roasted flavors if we make one of those brown stocks, which we'll get from the vegetables and we'll get from the veal. We're going to give it some depth with these aromatic ingredients, so the bay leaves, the thyme, the peppercorns, the parsley stems, garlic if we're adding that. And then we're going to have some mouthfeel in this liquid, the final liquid, by getting that gelatin. So we all know gelatin probably from Jell-O, and making sweets that are partially solidify, a liquid that solidifies when it's cold. Same thing happens to stocks when they're well made. And what we don't realize is when we heat that up, when we eat something that has a stock in it, it gives it body, it gives it mouthfeel, it gives it viscosity in the mouth. And so when we make sauces and soups and things like that from the stocks, they have a lot better mouthfeel and they have all this flavor, and it's what makes some of the great sauces what they are. So real quickly, prepping these things, I'm not going to go through all the cutting stuff again, but I do want to point out some sizes. So I'm again going to be making a beef or stock or a veal stock that's going to need to cook for 8 to 10 hours. So the vegetables are going to cook for a long time. So basically I want to cut the vegetables in sizes so that they won't disintegrate, but I'll get the flavor out of them. So with the onion, for example, I'd cut it in half through the root end, and I usually just cut it once that way, and then cut it in thirds that way and in half like that. And that gives me these big pieces. Same thing. And that's going to be fine for our stock. We'll get the flavor out of it from cooking it for so long. In the case of the celery, I'm just going to cut them in pieces that are like about an inch and a half long. And that's all I need to do with that. I've washed all this off already. And then with the carrots on the small end, I usually just cut them again about an inch or so long. And then where they get, if they're big carrots, I might split them and then cut them in, again, about the same lengths. So this way I've got these large pieces of vegetables that are all around the same size, so they should cook similarly. And I'm just going to cut all the mushrooms if we're using those. So again, those aren't always used in stocks. They work really nicely in the brown stocks. And if you make a vegetable stock, then typically mushrooms are going to be used in the vegetable stock because we're missing all of that flavor from the bones. And mushrooms have a little bit of the umami flavor, which is some of that savory flavor that we like in roasted meats and things like that. So, and then this, I just would wrap it up kind of like I'm making a burrito or something. So roll it, pull in the sides, and then I'm going to take, notice I have one string that's longer than the other. So I'm going to take and tie off the shorter string on one end. And then on the other one, I tie it just on one end of the string. And that way, when I use this in the stock pot, I can put it in with this long string. So it just is down inside the stock pot. The reason why we wrap it up is so that these things don't fall out. The stock pot that I have does not have a spout on it, but many do. So really a good stock pot will have a spout at the end where you can drain it from the bottom. And then you don't have peppercorns and thyme leaves and stuff like that going into the drain. So I can just tie it off. When the stock's done, I just pull it back out, and this would get discarded. So we're just using it for flavor. And then again, I've got the tomato paste, which would be part of that stock. Typically what I do with the tomato paste is when the bones are done and they have really nice color on them, I'll spread tomato paste on those bones and just go for like 5 more minutes to start to caramelize the tomato paste. Tomato paste has a lot of sugar in it, so it can burn very easily. And that way I develop a little more color, a little more flavor with the tomato paste, but I haven't burnt it. And stay tuned for some more.